a child doesn't learn to walk in a weekend. They don't crawl in a weekend. They don't learn to chew in a weekend. They shouldn't potty train in a weekend.
Welcome to the Be Well Baby podcast. I'm Dr. Emily Spaeth. I'm the founder of Be Well Baby here in Portland, Oregon, and the creator of the Beyond Birth Blueprint, where we support families all over the world. This podcast exists because pregnancy, birth, and postpartum care in this country are fragmented, rushed, and often missing the whole picture. And I believe families deserve better. Here, we talk about bodies, babies, nervous systems, feeding, recovery, and real life through a grounded, trauma-informed lens. Welcome back, everyone. Emily here. And today I am talking with Annie Adamson. She is the creator of Primal Child and the Primal Potty Training method. Annie is a yoga therapist, a pelvic floor specialist, and a mom of 27 years who brings such a refreshing perspective to learning how to go in the toilet. One of the things that I love about this conversation is how Annie reframes potty training as just another developmental milestone. And as someone who spends all of my time as a physical therapist thinking about and helping babies with their developmental milestones, like rolling and sitting and walking and crawling, those milestones deserve time, respect, and rhythm rather than a stressful 3-day boot camp. And potty learning should be no different. Annie talks about the golden window for starting. So when is the right time to start this process, and why body literacy matters so much? Not only that, but she talks about how understanding your child's unique constitution can completely change your approach. So whether you're expecting, you have a new baby, or you're in the thick of potty training struggles with a toddler, there is something here for you. Let's dive in. Annie, thank you so much for being here on the Be Well Baby podcast today.
Thanks so much for having me. I can't wait to chat with you.
I'm so excited. So tell me, how did Primal Child come to life?
Well, it started a long journey ago, because I've been a mom for 26 years, actually 27 years. My daughter just turned 27 in November, and she's about to have a baby any day. So my journey started as a teen mom, really young mom, and I, like many young teen moms, just tried to scrap it all together and make it all work. The biggest things for me was I didn't have the money to really afford diapers. And so I figured out a way to potty train really early, even before I knew what elimination communication or anything was. This was more of an intuitive, survival-based potty training need that worked. And then I continued to do it with the rest of my children and many other children along the way.
That's awesome.
I'm a yoga therapist, pelvic floor specialist, and somatic movement educator. I've spent 2 decades working with the body, with the breath, with the nervous system, and I ran a yoga community wellness center for 2 decades. And along with that, I've run Montessori-inspired childcare programs. I've worked with children for longer than I've even done yoga. My lens is really unique because it blends pelvic physiology really with this developmental psychology, childhood rhythm, understanding trauma with nervous system literacy. And I love supporting families and helping them create rhythm that's not just routine. So I've created the Primal Child method and the Primal Potty Training method for families that want to really change the dynamic of struggle and change that and transform it into routine and connection.
Cool. That's beautiful. The other thing about your background that was so cool during our first conversation that I found so fascinating and important was your, tenacity and your drive to bring your baby with you to work, essentially, and be working in this environment where you had to change how many diapers?
Too many. Yeah.
Too many diapers. And that was such an impetus for being able to figure out at such a young age how to respectfully potty train a giant group of children.
Yeah. I have such a rebel spirit. I always tell people I was a pro snowboarder in the 90s. Like I have a major rebel spirit. I worked at kinder camp up at the mountain, and I'm just like, I don't want to be taking a skiing child in diapers. This is so dumb. Like if you can ski, you can poop on the toilet. Like I had such a different understanding probably from that rebel spirit. But then I was like, the kids can do it. Trust the kids, and then all these parents, because they were probably older than me now, and I'm like, God, they're so uptight, and I'm like this like teen mom, and I'm like, if they can ski, they can poop in the toilet. Come on, guys. Let's just do it.
Totally.
And I'd make it fun and play with them and have a good time. Like, you can get your skis on, poop in the toilet. Here we go. And they would just do it. So, we just did it without any struggle.
So in that experience as a teen mom, was there a moment that made you realize that this is how parenting should actually feel?
Primal Child has some core pillars like ancestral nourishment. I've studied human movement and somatics for years and years. So I talk a lot about how movement is actually a nutrient that's really needed. I cover that as well as the nervous system aspect of children and the way they learn and grow. And respectful parenting that's not so gentle that they are walking all over us, right? It's loving and compassionate, but also direct and boundaried. So we get into that. And that's kind of the approach with potty training too, is how do you potty train in a way where you're really the leader of the child's experience, but they're also co-facilitating that. Yeah. So everything that I teach inside of Primal Child is about a collaboration with the child and not a power struggle dynamic or so much gentle parenting that we have children in diapers till they're 5, and they're eating whatever they want and doing whatever they want, right? So it's really this intentional pathway for parents to understand where their pitfalls are or their struggles as the way they were raised or whatever is coming up for them. But it is through the potty training lens that I find that the entire parenting perspective can change through something like potty training.
Yeah. So Primal Child is the 4 pillars. So one of those pillars is ancestral healing. Another is nervous system regulation. Another is the potty training.
Yeah.
And the movement piece, right? Because one of the things that is true about your background is that you have taught yoga for many, many, many years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that journey and how you incorporate that into Primal Child?
Yeah. So I started a brand years ago, probably 10 years ago at this point, called Primal Vinyasa. I did a 10-year case study, like hands-on before AI, having like an actual student in my room scribing everything that we did for people that were pretty severely injured. I was working with brain injured, car accidents, a lot of neurodivergency, and just a lot of different things happening. I owned a yoga studio in Portland, and I had a funnel of all of these people coming in, hundreds of people a day. And I was first working with injuries as a yoga therapist, but then this developed so much deeper into all of this nervous system work. And it was through the repatterning and the case studies that I found, going backwards and studying human development and looking at the way that a child moves, the way their head moves with the atlanto-occipital joints, the way their eyes track. And so I was finding, why would I have somebody pop up into a back bend or kick up into a handstand or hold a warrior 2 when they literally can't roll? They can't even sit properly. And so I started reverse engineering everything in the yoga industry and breaking it all down into human development and movement. And so I created Primal Vinyasa, which has 5 categories of movement, starting as like infancy all the way up through to migration patterns. And so through the human development, I can take anyone, whether or not they're 1 year old, and take them through my Primal Vinyasa system, or 97, because I've broken it all down into different categories and structures. And then I built a 10-year case study around this. So inside Primal Child, I have that as a core pillar. So when I'm working with families and children, a lot of times the potty learning isn't happening because they're not getting enough of that movement. Body literacy is part of potty learning. And if children are spending too much time sedentary, whether they have to run kids to sports, and we look at it, I look at some parents and they're spending 12 hours a week in the car with the developing child that needs to do all of these things. We have to figure out different structures and strategies, whether, when you get home, you're pushing, you're pulling, you're climbing, get rid of your couch, get rid of things, whatever you can do to make a play environment. And it starts to develop their body literacy, where if potty training is not happening and a child is very fearful or they're resistant or there's something else going on, I look at those other pillars and go, okay, what's going on with their nourishment? What's going on with their sleep? What's going on with their attachment bonds? What's going on with their movement? Because we can't just go, oh, let's give them a sticker chart, or let's provide them with some M&Ms, or let's, just rip the diapers away and steal their underwear for 3 days. And then we're not looking at the whole child,
You were just talking a little bit about body literacy, and I really want to dive in there because I think that's a huge part of your work. And I'm curious if you can give a couple more examples. You gave a few, but I know that people listening are going to think, do I have to do X, Y, and Z? But I want to give just a few examples of how parents can support their child's body awareness from birth.
Yes, absolutely, from birth. And we know that we're in an era of attachment parenting, which is really amazing. Carry your babies, wear your babies, as much time as you can to have with your babies. And yet we have two camps, where the newborn child is too much in contraptions, or the newborn child is constantly being worn and they don't get time on the floor. Right. And so we can separate those two aspects, where you could then take a 1-year-old child and they've been bonded to their mom's body, for that entire year. But because she's busy running around doing all those things, they haven't had adequate time, right, on the floor. And so we have to find this balance between connection, skin to skin, intimacy, and also really present, connected time on the floor with different I call them variable lands. So higher objects, softer objects, close to the window, away from the window, feeling temperature, feeling cold. Like my brand new newborn, even preemie, who was born 3 pounds, a week into his life, I was putting his feet on the wet grass in the morning, putting him in the sunlight and having him lay on the porch and feel the breeze, even if it's for minutes. Right. So we did tons and tons of skin to skin, but now that he's almost 2 years old, speaks thousands of words, fully potty trained, that all happened from day one because I was paying attention to those movement habits and movement patterns, knowing he would be delayed physically because he was a preemie, which he didn't walk until 15 months. You actually helped me with that. But I was paying attention to that, knowing that this was coming. And now that he's, 20 months old, he's not delayed at all, because of all the exercises and practices that we did in order to develop this child forward. And so part of what I teach parents is to look for the signs and symptoms for where that child particularly is going to need more strategy, whether or not it is through more movement or outside time or connection. Some children need more alone time, actually, which, we don't realize. They're all different. And so inside my Primal Potty Training method, I teach parents about constitution and what is it like to raise a child that's more fire or more wind or more air or more earth or more wood, right? And so I walk them through the different aspects of those children, and they're all blended, of course, but to know that about your child and then to offer them different tools and techniques to create balance, like a homeopathic dose, right? Eating in the midline.
Yeah. So your Primal Potty Training method really reframes learning to use a toilet as a stage of body awareness, right?
Yeah, of deep body awareness, where as a pelvic floor therapist as well. So I went into yoga therapy, studied the female body, started studying with some of the best teachers in the world, one of them being Tammy Kent, mentored with her for 5 years, studied that. And what I came to find out right through my own body awareness, I had very fast births. All my births were really fast. And so I had pairing and things. So I studied the pelvic floor for myself first, then diving deeper into it and going, oh my gosh, there's all these patterns. And for so many women that I talk to, we go all the way back to this root of trauma, and they have these really weird memories from potty training, whether or not they were shamed or spanked or they were in trouble for peeing their pants. Men too, right? I talk to so many clients, they're like, yeah, one of my earliest memories is being laughed at or getting spanked for peeing or pooping my pants and not wanting to tell anyone. These just strange connections to the pelvic floor and to the root. And so I feel like potty training in a way that is building intimacy, body literacy, and safety is preventative for a lot of the things that are coming up, especially in the teen years. young adulthood. Because I'm raising in a very different way than I think. I have my hands in a 1-year-old, a 15-year-old. My other daughter's 21, and then I have a 27-year-old who's about to have a baby. So parenting all of these different chapters and taking a lot of notes and putting pieces together of how they all fit from what I do with my infant to how it affects my 28-year-old and our relationship and her relationship to becoming a mother, and how I'm becoming a grandmother, and at the same time parenting a 1-year-old. It is truly knowing our nervous system and being able to have intimacy and literacy and words and communication about ourselves. Most of us have been harmed, not always intentionally, but, even something as simple as, oh, they had an accident. Oh my God, they had an accident. Potty training, they keep having accidents. So we're saying this in front of the child who's learning to talk. Whereas we switched the language, and, I walk up to Levi, and I did this with all my children, and I would go, oh, I see that your pants are wet. Can you feel that your pants are wet? Here, use your hands. Your pants are wet. And they're like, yeah, my pants are wet. Let's take those off. Not, would you like to change them? Because they're going to say no.
Yeah,
so
they absolutely will.
Not where I give the choice. Oh, let's change your clothes. Let's get you some dry clothes. You can choose between the pink pants or the brown pants, whatever.
Right.
Choice there, but the choice isn't to change your pants. So I see that you're wet. And then the struggle of getting the pants off and, having to change and pee your pants. It's just like, oh, I see you're wet. Eventually they tell you I'm wet. And then from I'm wet comes, I feel like I need to go potty.
So when do you start this?
It's dependent for the child and for the constitution of the child and for the family.
So you kind of mentioned the constitutions, the wind, fire, water, earth, air.
Yeah. I mean, you can look at it from a Chinese medicine perspective, or you could, I try to really simplify it for parents because not every parent understands like a Chinese medicine lens or the lens of, Western or vitalist herbalists, but
Totally.
fiery, so sensitive, watery, earthy, like slow, airy, high energy, sensory seeking, sensory avoiding, rhythm dependent, fast adapters. And so I kind of put these into categories inside my book, like, the water, the fire, the earth, the air. And then we can kind of break those down a little bit more. So,
are you looking for any like specific behaviors before you start potty training, or even specific motor skills?
I would say, it is dependent on the family and what the family wants to do. So first it starts with the family's desire. And then knowing the child. So let's say that a mom has 5 kids and they're all different ages, and she's running around doing all the sports and activities and things like that. When she starts is going to or the desire to want to start is going to be different than a first-time mom that's stay at home. This is the only kid she's caring up for, and she may want to start as soon as her child is sitting up. And that seems really appropriate. Or the mom that's really busy and has lots of teenagers and running around. I can think of one of my private clients right now. She didn't really start until her daughter was 2. She wanted to start earlier, but she just didn't because she couldn't really. It was just like, we tried and we started and stopped. And so I don't think so much it's about the age. I would prefer under 1 because it does help with brain development, neural connections, body awareness. It is fundamentally more ideal to start younger also because there's less struggle. They don't have as much spite, and it just becomes part of their routine, and it's less of a struggle when they're So I do recommend starting as soon as they can sit up. But if the family cannot do that, I still have structures and maps for families that have to start later so that you're not having a battle about it.
Yeah. You probably already have one of these, but if you don't, I wanted to tell you all about the Aura Ring. I started using it postpartum with my second baby so that I could actually see how poor my sleep quality was. And watching the subtle shifts over time has been incredible. It tracks your heart rate variability, your sleep, your recovery, even the little changes in your body temperature before you notice them. It was really amazing to see my stats change throughout my third pregnancy and then watch them improve postpartum. One of my favorite things, it actually gives me permission to rest. And as someone who struggles to rest, that is everything. It really points me to recovery in a way that nothing else does. You can click the link in the show notes for 10% off your Oura Ring, or if you already have one, grab one for your bestie or your mom. They deserve rest too. I always just sort of not really knowing much about elimination communication or anything. I always put my 8-month-olds on the toilet right before the bathtub. And it was so fun for them to accidentally pee.
Yeah.
It was great. I think I've heard a lot of families say that their child is afraid of the toilet flushing and things like that. And I always just made the toilet, sitting on the toilet, a thing that we do. And I think that's really, really helpful and sort of fits into your primal potty training approach. What is one really common mistake that parents are making when they're trying to teach babies to pee in the toilet?
I would say the most common mistake is rushing the process and trying to do it in a fast weekend. I'm really not a fan of that. I'm not going to say that it doesn't work for people, but what we're doing in that, let's imagine we tried to teach a child the violin or to play soccer or even to stack the pink tower in Montessori. How long that actually takes to build that skill. And so just rushing to get it over with and done so fast, the child will obey because that's what we've taught them to do. Is if we're going to take your pants and you're going to do this for 3 days, we're going to give you water and I'll give you an M&M, we'll set a timer. They're getting a lot of attention and they're going to want to do it to please you, but it is stressful when we do that. Imagine if you did that with the pink tower and you said, all we're going to do is for 3 days is we're going to build this pink tower, whether you like it or not. They're not really going to like the pink tower, and they're not probably really going to like stacking blocks very much when it's forced for 3 days. And so whether it's a puzzle, whether, they don't want to do that, but or eat the chicken soup for 3 days and I'm going to lock you in a room and all you get is chicken soup. We do it with the toilet, which is so strange to me, is why do we do it with the toilet? And we would never do that with anything else. That's the number one mistake. I'm really not a fan of those approaches because children deserve respect and they deserve space to learn a new skill, whether it's climbing up a ladder, putting on their shoes, or brushing their own teeth, or wiping their bum. These all are the same. And so we have to be respectful. So when it comes to potty learning, it's just slow down and respect the child. Some of them will get it fast. That's just their constitution. They'll, you introduce the toilet at 14 months and you're excited about it. They have a balanced nervous system. We've introduced it in a way that feels really fun. We've introduced play by proxy, which I call it, with toys and stuffies. And it's this really fun thing. And for whatever reason, they're done with their diapers, right? And they get it really fast. Whereas
it was just spending a week with my friends who said that their daughter peed on the floor one time as a 12-month-old or something and was like, well, that was embarrassing, and she never did it again.
Yeah.
She always went to the toilet. It couldn't have been 12 months, probably as a 14-month-old or something.
Yeah. Well, I had one child like that too. My daughter, who's 27, she was potty trained by 11 months through the night. The ones where I didn't have the money to buy the diapers. I just gave her underwear and she peed her pants a couple times. And then she was like that. She was like, I don't pee my pants. She just kind of knew. And then she had her cute little underwear that had the ruffles on them and she didn't want to pee in them. So she didn't. And she just went potty. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And Tabor, my 15-year-old, he was super fast too. He was by his first birthday. He never wet the bed at night, not a single time. Even still as a 15-year-old, I've never heard him get up to pee in the night. Never.
Wow.
Whereas Levi, the one I have now, he's peed his pants every day, multiple times a day since he was 6 months old. But he's still potty trained, right? He just doesn't care if he pees his pants. And we don't care either. Most of the time now at 20 months, he tells me and he's dry and he'll still poop his pants and be shameless about it. He doesn't care. He's just he'll go, oh, I'm thinking about something. And I'm like, what? And he's like, thinking about pooping. And he's go, oh, wait, I pooped. poop, and I'm like, oh, you did? And he's like, yep, I did. It's just like, okay, let's change it.
So, I mean, Annie, that is amazing body awareness from a 20-month-old, It doesn't happen all the time. So we kind of started at the beginning with when a baby is sitting, you're putting them on the toilet, you're helping them kind of learn when they're wet. And then you just mentioned play by proxy. So what are the steps to get to play by proxy? Or is that kind of the next step?
Yeah. So it would be your child sitting up, right? They know how to sit up now, whether that's you're in development. A child could sit up anywhere from 4 to 10 months, but in general, around 6 months, they're sitting up. And we don't want to force the sitting up, but they're sitting up naturally and they're strong and they can do that. Well, then you can start introducing, you could do elimination communication if you want to. That's a whole nother method. But the parents that I work with are oftentimes not wanting to potty train their infant. That's seems like a whole thing. And we're not looking necessarily for cues. We're actually setting up a rhythm. You will start to notice those cues, but the first thing that I teach parents is not to look for cues, because there's elimination communication books that are hundreds of pages long, learning cues, and they're like crying. They're like, I don't get it. There's so many cues. I can't tell if they needed to sneeze or if they have to pee, and then they're overwhelmed. So I say, don't worry about that. I say, just set up a rhythm, get the potty out, have the stuffies around it, put it in the environment, the small potty. We play with it. We touch it. We tap on it. We just introduce it into our life. We sit on it with clothes on. We sit on it without clothes. We put the babies on there. We talk about it. Even at 6 months, they know, they're smart. You can say, where's dada at 6 months? And they're like, or where's the light? Point, right? So they understand. And then from that understanding, we just have a rhythm where, let's imagine they just woke up from their nap. Let's take the diaper off and sit on the potty. And then we play and we sing or we read a little book. They don't stay there too long. If they ever fuss or squirm to get off, we just let them off. There's no forcing at all. And then you do that again a little bit later. Let's say, you're about to go somewhere and you're going to change the clothes. Then transitions, you put them on the potty for a transition or after a meal. And so I would start with the little kids that I've been potty training around 6 months. All of them is really when I started. And 5 to 10 times a day, they would sit on the potty. The majority of the time they would pee, because that was part of it. And then we would put underwear on. I would buy the tiny little underwear. Actually, back then, I would sew the sides of the underwear because they didn't have them tiny enough. So I just sewed the sides. And then they would just wear underwear in the house. And the only time we would do diapers was for nap time or when we were driving. And this just became every day. It's the consistency, not so much that you have to read a 200-page manual on reading cues or understanding cues. It's just put it in your life. Like you would brush the teeth or you'd take the vitamins or you'd just put the pottying in your life when they're little, when they're super tiny, and they're never going to be scared of it.
Yeah, it's so great to remember just that rhythm of introducing over and over again, the same way that we have to use the toilet multiple times a day, And ultimately, I think in general, probably people aren't using the toilet enough. People aren't drinking enough water, and so they're not actually using the toilet enough. But what is coming up for me right now is just this idea of what about your in-laws? What about your parents? What if you're getting outside pressure or judgment from people around you about your decision to not, do the 3-day method or to start early? How do you help parents navigate that?
Well, one of the things that I do is I usually ask them a question. So if they were like, why are you wanting to potty train so early? I said, do you know what age you were potty trained? Wait, how old are you? 65? How old are you? How old were you when you were potty trained? They were like, probably 1 or 2, right? Because now in 2026, 90% of children are potty trained after 3.
Wow.
And that's
wow,
so much later. When I was doing research for my book, I went on for about an entire year and spent time in the potty training forums on Facebook and became part of these conversations to see the questions that parents were asking. I wanted real boots on the ground research and conversations. And the biggest thing was that these kids are already so much older, honestly, until 5, and they're not using the potty and they're resistant and they're scared and they're overwhelmed. So most parents were in tears. They're like, I tried every method, nothing's working. And so they were so stressed. So then in turn, the child was stressed. And so all of these parents with older children are having such a difficult time. And so I call it the golden window. There is a golden window to potty train. And it is really that 6 month to 12-month window. It makes everything easier. Now parents will find me when they're past the golden window. And there's so much we can do. But if you're having a baby soon, or you have a baby right now, try not to miss that golden window. They say that with puppies, right? That window for aggression too.
Totally.
And potty training, you want to do that at that 9-week to 12-week window for puppies. And that's a golden window. The same is for babies, whether it's learning to eat or, some of these skills that we're teaching them. That's the window from 6 to 9 months. Think about it. That's the window they learn to walk, to sit, to crawl, right? To twist, to turn, to do all of these things in that golden window. And so we can add the potty learning when their mind's exploding and they're so curious and they're full of wonder, and all of these things are developing that you want to add in this big developmental milestone at that time, rather than just skip over it and numb the bum, I say. And so then they have to just kind of reverse it later. So it is easier. Parents are not going to potty train in a weekend with that, but that's not the point. The point is a child doesn't learn to walk in a weekend. They don't crawl in a weekend. They don't learn to chew in a weekend. They shouldn't potty train in a weekend. I'm just going to say they should not, in my opinion. It is not healthy. It really needs to be part of that developmental golden window.
And I know that we're not really talking about sleep necessarily in this episode, but I feel like there is this idea that some parents have that if you try to sleep train your baby and it doesn't work, then you've done something wrong. Or you try to potty train your baby in a weekend and it doesn't work, then you've done something wrong. But in reality, your baby should take the time that they need to develop this skill of learning to fall asleep on their own, of using the toilet on their own. And it should take time. We want to create a nice, rich foundation, not like a Band-Aid moment.
Yeah, exactly. And, sleep is in one of my categories in the nervous system, because the nervous system has to do with regulation, whether it's rest or sleep or digest, all of that goes in the nervous system piece. And sleeping is also a piece of that, right? And so why do we separate all of these pieces of development and then we set ourselves up for having some sort of failure? If a child, and some children need, like I was saying, they need their own sleeping area, and some children need to be in the bed with their parent. And 5 children, they're not all going to be the same with what they need either.
Yeah.
So you can't sleep a child the way that you would every child. You can't potty train a child the way you can't feed a child the way that you feed every child. But what we try to do is put kids in these little boxes and go, this is the way. And so people ask me, what is the way that you potty train? There must be the 3-day method. No. The number one thing that I can say is please give your child space and time to potty train. We have to back up and take out all of these gimmicks and go back to the old world way and listen to the grandmothers and the wisdom of our ancestors that trusted the human body took time. And we used to use cloth. So of course they would have more of a connection to that. The elders, they weren't necessarily doing elimination communication, but they were potty training earlier. They knew that, they didn't think if a child was still in a diaper at 4 or 5, they would consider that child had some developmental problems. They had whereas we wouldn't necessarily say that's true now, but what we would say is they have a nervous system delay. And we've then tampered off a piece of their connection and their felt body if they're still in a diaper at that age.
Yeah. What do you do for kiddos who are older and are potty trained? They're peeing and pooping in the toilet during the day, but they are still in a pull-up at night.
Yeah, nighttime is a whole nother thing. And that's probably the number one thing I get coaching calls for is the nighttime potty training. And the other one that people reach out to me about mostly is the pooping in their diaper. They'll pee in the toilet, but they will only poop in their diaper. I just recently worked with a mom. She's super amazing. And she booked a coaching call with me. She tried every single method out there. And her son, who was 3, would only poop in his diaper. So he'd have underwear on, and then as soon as he needed to poop, he would say, diaper, please. And he'd go and put his diaper on. He would actually put on the pull-up, and then he would go in the living room and do these like moves to poop, and then he would ask to be changed, right? And so she was like, I don't know what to do, because if I don't give him the diaper, he'll hold his poop and he won't go. And then he's constipated for days and days and days.
So what do you do for that?
Yeah, so I set up a plan for her. We did one coaching call. I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to start first. And this is hard with gentle parenting and not having boundaries. The first thing we're going to do is say, yeah, you can poop in your diaper, but you're going to poop in the bathroom. Okay, so that's where we poop. Everyone poops in the bathroom, and we're going to poop in there. So you can have your diaper, but you need to go in the bathroom. Close the door. You can be by yourself, whatever you want, in the bathroom. But I was pooping in the living room. Nope, we're going to poop in the bathroom. So that was like the biggest thing. It's like, oh my God, am I going to do that? I said, from there, pooping in the bathroom, it's then going to be, once we poop in the bathroom, we're going to poop on the toilet, but you can poop your diaper on the toilet. You're going to sit on the toilet, though, because that's where we poop. We poop on toilets. So we just keep moving them forward. Then the next thing is we're going to poop on the toilet, but we're going to loosen the diaper, really loose. Because again, it's like hugging the hips. It's this contained private thing. And so then the next thing is that you're going to loosen the diaper so it feels really loose. And he's like, oh, I don't really have that tight thing around me to poop in anymore. But now, and you're not even telling him that you're loosening the diaper, but now you're putting the diaper on really loose. And he's like, okay. Then the next thing is you're sitting on the toilet with the diaper loose. Then you flip the back open so he can feel the air on his thumb. Flip the back open. And then from there, we're going to put the diaper in the toilet, and you can poop on the diaper.
And so all of these are like different poop experiences. It's not all in the same poop experience.
And I said, this could take a matter of 5 days through the 5 steps. This could take 5 weeks, right? This could take 5 months, probably not at 3, because you're going to, what I said to her is you never go back on the thing you did. So once we poop in the bathroom, we're never going back to pooping in the living room. Once we're sitting on the toilet, we're no longer pooping, especially for a 3-year-old. Nope, we're pooping on the toilet. Even if he cries a little bit, you can have your diaper, you're going to poop on the toilet. You might have to repeat it for days and days and days, but we're still pooping in the bathroom. We're still pooping on the diaper, on the potty, right? All these things. Well, we set up the whole strategy, and she told him, here's what we're going to do. And she was just very firm and clear about it. She was like, he lost his mind about pooping in the bathroom. And she held it firm, and she goes, nope, if you're not going to poop in the bathroom, you don't get the diaper. You're just pooping in the bathroom. It's not mean. This is where we all poop. We poop in the bathroom. You know what he did? He goes, fine, I don't want the diaper. And he pooped in the toilet. And they didn't have to do any of the steps, and now he poops.
Oh my gosh. I think it's so funny. It's so funny because you can see their little rationales of like, I want this diaper and I want to do what I've been doing. And when they see the steps ahead that they're eventually going to have to poop in the toilet anyway, they're like, well, whatever. I'll just do it.
Smart. He could fully talk and fully communicate. And so when she gave him the next thing that he was going to do, he just pooped in the toilet. And he never had a diaper again.
Yeah.
And they didn't. Wow. They just got rid of him, and they never did again. So not every kid will have that experience. But she messaged me. She's like, we're potty trained. We're not pooping anymore.
We're good.
Then the same thing a little bit with nighttime is then for some boys, they do have some ailments where they'll pee the bed until they're 10, you know, and that's like where we need to look at the bladder and just the flaps of the bladder and like what's happening. Maybe we work with homeopathics and just different things with it. And that has to do with our wake cycles. The brain changes when we're asleep. There's a few things that we would have to look at with that. But most children, typically, they're just drinking too many liquids before bed, and they want a bunch of things, or they're not getting woken up to pee, and they might need to pee in the night still. Last night, Levi woke me up, and he goes, I have to pee. I mean, he's 20 months old. I have to pee, mama. And I was like, you know, like his wool thing on. I'm like, okay. Like, you know, get him. We have a little potty in the bedroom, you know, and then he peed and he went back to sleep. But, you know, he didn't wake me up before. This is new, but he is telling me, waking up, like, I have to pee. Oh my God. You know? And so, but like I was saying, my other child never peed in the night. He never had to. And I've worked with children that have peed the bed until they're 10, 11, 12, you know, so that's where I think the nighttime peeing really does require maybe some private support. Yeah. Especially if they're older and there's something prolonged. But in general, if it's just a 2-year-old, just don't feed them so many liquids and maybe get a plastic sheet for a while and let them
Yeah.
have a try.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think having the experience of trying to like get a kid up at 10 p.m. and put them on the toilet and they're like fully asleep. And it's really interesting that they usually pee.
Yeah. Yeah. They usually pee and then they sleep a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so we're oftentimes waking up dry. And I do notice that if he does pee in his diaper at night, we did have a restless period before that. Like he probably does want to get up to pee. So now I'm like just making it easier for him to pee in the night because he'll sleep better. He doesn't want to pee in the night. But we do still have a pull up at night just because he sleeps in my bed and I don't want plastic sheets because they don't sound very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're getting up to pee. So, you know, it's really about, it's so simple, Emily. It really, really is. It is no different than any of these other things that we do. Walking, crawling, brushing teeth, eating, sleeping, peeing, pooping. We separate it as a culture now. We separate it as this thing that requires stickers and bubble gum and candy and lollipops and surprises. And it's just like, we don't need to do that.
Yeah.
Just to get to go to the bathroom. Like it is such a normal thing that it doesn't even really have to be celebrated or clapped for. Like when we put it into a rhythm, like imagine if we celebrated and clapped every time our child brushed their teeth at night.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're like, amazing, you know, we maybe have to do that if we didn't brush their teeth from the time they first started getting teeth.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a toothbrushing struggle. But most kids will brush their teeth because we as parents, that's culturally appropriate, is that we brush a tooth as soon as it comes in. And this becomes something we do twice a day. Why can't we even do pottying twice a day? The teeth, like just start there and make that the routine. Like just get it in with the toothbrushing routine twice a day at 6 months or when they get their first tooth. Do it at the same time as the first tooth, and this becomes rhythm. In anthroposophical medicine, we talk about rhythm and routine routine is rigid. Rhythm has fluidity, and rhythm is like we start to dim the lights, we turn the music down, we get on the wool jammies, we put on the essential oil, like all these things we do in our life to create in the home a rhythm. Some families have no rhythm and they only have like some routines and then everything just feels chaotic. And so part of what I teach in the Primal Child method is to look at the entire structure of the home and go, how can you bring in more rhythm? Whether that's making broths and having predictable things that the child can plan on. That's why I love Montessori is we always have the flower arrangement that's predictable. There's always flowers. They're arranged. The child can help with that. That's part of the rhythm. There's broth on the stove. They get to have that every day. That's part of our life. Same with pottying becomes rhythm. It's not scary. Never will be scary if it's part of the rhythm. The flower arrangement isn't scary. The potty won't be scary if it has rhythm.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so beautiful. I love that. I feel like I probably need a little bit more rhythm in my day-to-day with my family.
Yeah.
If your baby ever needs a pacifier, and not all babies do, the one that I would want in your world is the Ninny. It's the only pacifier designed to actually mimic the shape and function of the breast. It looks like this. It's very soft here, like an areola, and then harder, like a nipple. And this shape means that it supports healthy oral development instead of interfering with it. I really love it because babies don't just passively hold it in their mouth like the ones with the bulb on the end. They have to actively suck. It's hard work. It's my workout pacifier. And that matters for feeding, for regulation, and for long-term oral function. It's especially beautiful for breastfed babies who need a little extra soothing without confusion. If you're listening and you're pregnant, postpartum, or buying for someone you love, you can grab a Ninny through the link in the show notes or use the code BeWellBaby for 10% off at checkout. It's one of these tiny little tools that makes a huge difference. And my favorite part about it is that babies don't get dependent on it. All right, let's get back to the show. It's a lot having 3 little kids, and trying to find a rhythm that feels good, especially around meals, is very, very hard.
Yeah. And when you have an older child too, like you do, that child can light the candle and set the table and arrange the flowers. Because it is when children can predict something, like, so my 27-year-old, she knew her whole life that there would be soup, right? Like that's part of part of the rhythm. My teenager, even though I could be sick of it, we always have hot broth or a cup of tea. My children always have a cup of tea. Every morning from the time they're 1, they have a cup of tea. And that's part of the rhythm that we've brought in. My children all drink tea because that's what I've chosen to bring into the home. Where children are like, I don't drink tea. All my kids drink tea. And the reason that I did that is because I knew that I need to get herbs in. So I start with a chamomile tea or a Krishna Tulsi tea at 4 to 6 months old. And that's a temp, and we warm the temperature.
Yeah.
And so when we introduce that as a rhythm, every day, the nervous system is learning it's not scary, it's not too hot, it's not foreign, it's not juice, right? It's warm, it's nourishing, it's healing. And they do it when they're adults, right? These are all rhythmic practices, a warm yarrow compress on the chest, how to do contrasting hydrotherapy. I teach parents this. Like, children aren't scared of it because you've done it since they were babies. For me, the potty training is an insert into the folds and the flow of a rhythmic home. We create a rhythmic home. These things that we do, hot broth in the mouth, hot and cold therapies, potty learning, teeth brushing, none of it's scary. It doesn't, nobody's freaking out.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds really nice. I know that there's so many families out there struggling, especially around teeth brushing, potty training, just all of the things that wish were simple and easy.
The reason that we struggle with those is exactly why, though, is because there isn't rhythm in the home. They don't have anything predictable that is repeated, that's besides get in the car, run an errand, do the thing, get your clothes, grab your shoes. Like, that's routine, right? 8 o'clock, we have to go here, 5 o'clock. What's the rhythm that creates warmth and healing and grounding and connection? Some families play a game, right? That's predictable. Like, they know that on Tuesday nights they play a game, or everybody does this on a certain night. And that's just part of the rhythm that isn't a task.
Yeah.
Rhythm is not a task. And so potty training should not be a task.
Yeah. Well, what would you say your go-to tool for co-regulation is with kids? If you're describing the kid who's screaming because he doesn't want to poop in his diaper in the bathroom and he's freaking out, or the kid who's freaking out about the toothbrushing or whatever it is, not getting an M because he used to get M&Ms when he peed, what is like the tool that you come back to for kind of co-regulating with a kid who's freaking out?
Well, let's just use 2 examples first. So, like the fiery, strong-willed fast movers, they do best with structure and routine. They need reminders, but they thrive with clear leadership. They need autonomy. They respond well to early independence, being trusted. Whereas the watery, sensitive child, they need things to be softer, to have more furs in the house and rugs, and they need things to be warm. They respond to a longer period of potty training, more play by proxy, right? And if there's an earthy child who's slow, this is one that you observe first. You watch them, you learn more from them. And the potty should probably be in the same place all the time. Repetition is really important. And they do really well with ritual and lighting candles and things like that. Those airy children that are really high energy, constant moving, have a hard time sitting still. We don't want to talk too much about things. We don't want to bring in so many aspects. They actually respond from going outside and getting their feet on the ground and regulating that way. So it is dependent a little bit on the child that you have and what regulates them, right? And so, nature regulates all children, but not always as the first anchor. Some children are going to be really regulated by a rainy, muddy puddle, and some will be very dysregulated by a muddy puddle. And they actually need the warm lambskin full and the silky blankie and the essential oil and the storybook to anchor them first. Whereas a really fiery child is probably going to be stoked to jump in that puddle. Yeah. But not that really sensitive, earthy child. She probably needs to snuggle you up.
So if you could whisper one little piece of advice to these parents navigating early childhood, infanthood, what would it be?
I would say slow down, really slow down and pull back a little bit. We say, step out of the forest to see the trees. Step back and look at your home and scan for where there's chaos. Like maybe you have too many toys out. Maybe you have too much going on. Like step back and try to clear some space so that you can slow down, and then set up not just bedtime routines and things that are routines. Like you probably have a routine. Slow down, step back, and then bring more rhythm into your life in whatever ways that feel that it matches your child. Like it's a corner, or it's a mud thing outside, or like whatever you can do to really create a rhythm and a predictable anchor for that child. And then add the potty training as a really important piece of their life that is just normal. It's not weird or strange or it doesn't need chocolate chips. It's like just a normal part of the routine and the rhythm. And it's so nice and it's not scary. And we just take our time with it and don't expect your child to learn things in 3 days. Like give them time. Yeah.
So Annie, I would love for you to tell us where people can find you and what is the primary way that you're working with families right now?
Yeah. So you can connect with me through Instagram. That's usually the quickest route, which is Primal_Child. I'm sure Emily will link it. And then there's the link in the bio. From there, you can either buy the potty training handbook or get my free masterclass. If you want to work together, you can easily find me to do coaching. I work with families, taking them through all the pillars of Primal Child. So not just the potty training, but oftentimes I work with families for 6 months and just take them through every pillar and create rhythm and structure and just a nicer experience of parenting, no matter what age the child is. And so, yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions or work with you privately.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Annie. And then we also have a very special event coming up for listeners. We are going to be hosting your Primal Potty Training course in the spring.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about what that in-person course will entail?
Yeah, the in-person course I think is really important for bringing your questions for either starting potty learning or wanting to move through some of those pitfalls that you're experiencing. So anyone that wants to come in person, you'll connect with other parents, right? You'll have an opportunity to ask questions. I'll show you different potties and underwear, and there'll be some live demos and ways that you can really work with your kid. And it'll be really that in-person human connection that we all crave so much rather than just an online class.
Yeah, I think everyone really wants to be in person right now.
Yeah, we could do it online, but it's just going to be so much more fun to be able to touch and feel and experience all the potty things.
Yeah. And is this something that people bring their babies to?
They can. Yeah, they could, but maybe not like a toddler running around. Like a baby is fine. But if you had a million toddlers running around, that might be a little much.
It might be a little crazy. Yeah. So keep it to babies who are not yet walking.
Yeah, babies that aren't walking can come. Yeah.
Yeah. Annie, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. If you'd like to connect with her, you can find her on Instagram at Primal_Child. I'll link it in the show notes, of course, along with her free masterclass and her potty training handbook. And if you're local to Portland, we have an exciting in-person Primal Potty Training workshop coming up in March. Check the show notes for a link to sign up for that. And I'll see you next time. New episodes drop every Wednesday, and you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Follow me on Instagram at BeWellBabyPDX or just visit BeWellBaby.org. Send an episode to someone who's pregnant, postpartum, or just needs guidance. No one should have to do this alone. Welcome to the Be Well Baby podcast. You're in the right place.